Life is short. You don't know how short. You don't think about death until you have to.
Yeah.
And most people choose not to. Like in the sense of this could happen tomorrow. It's a permanent thing in life, and we all know that. My dad, we didn't know he was sick until we did. And then it was about 1.5 years between that and him passing away. This happens to other people, it doesn't happen to you. After that happened, I realized that some decisions that I made in life can't be reversed. I wish I did spend more time with my family, and like I did go home more often, and I did call them more often. There needs to be time for work, yes, but also for all of the other meaningful things in your life. Because the only thing you cannot get back is time. And the only certainty in life is death. We can't predict how soon that's gonna come and how much time we have left.
Hey everybody, on the show today we are joined by Alex Radu, a creative technologist from Romania whose journey spans 5 jobs, 3 countries, and one life-changing shift in perspective. In this episode, Alex shares how to understand how much of you is really you versus the expectations of culture, family, and survival. She also shared what losing her father taught her about time, regret, and what's truly non-negotiable. She spoke about why you don't need to have it all figured out and why you just need the courage to take the next step. Alex calls it a joyful dance into the unknown. And finally, we spoke about why speaking about death can actually help us live more fully intentional lives. If you've ever felt caught between honoring your roots and where you're from and building your future, this conversation will meet you there. See you on the other side.
I left home when I was like 18, 19. I moved to do my degree here. It was tough. Like my family, none of them spoke English. I had to become like an expert in like residential lets and getting a work permit and getting my like documents in place and getting a place to live and figuring out like how do I get a job and getting a job and then like supporting myself and all of those things, because like I come from like a modest family. Basically we have a farm like in Romania. A lot of people do, but like we live in the countryside. Like we grow animals, vegetables, all that kind of stuff. And I realized that actually, if I would have stayed there, I wouldn't have wanted to go to university there. And I wouldn't have wanted to work there because it was not the type of environment and culture that I would want in my working life. And this was like looking at my parents and how they felt about their work and how they kind of like dealt with life.
How did they feel about their work? And what were they doing?
I think in Romania, like work is not about enjoying work, and it's not about finding what you're good at and what you can kind of like contribute to the world and yourself and society. It's more about making enough money to survive.
Gotcha.
And most of the time, most parents, they give up themselves for their children and for money. So it's not about what I want. It's not about what I need. It's not about what makes me happy, what makes me fulfilled, what I'm like, giving back. It's about making sure that my children have more than I do and they're going to do better than I do. And that, like sometimes even like most times people compare themselves with everyone else. Like it's all about what you have, what other people think of you, what other people say about you, what the neighbor has and what you have, and like how does that compare? And I think like for me, like that's just a very tiring and like sad way of living. Like if you're not happy with yourself and if you're not working on yourself and if you're not trying to be the best you can be for yourself, your family, your friends, your society, your community, I don't see how you're ever going to have like a fulfilled life.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
And that the mentality back home is very different. Like we've only been a democratic like country for what is it now? 35 years. So communism fell in 89. That's the year my sister was born. And I think there is some issue with how people acclimatize from being in a very restrictive environment to being in a very free environment. And I think we haven't yet gotten to the point where we have acclimatized. I think it's still very much like it's basically like you've been boxed in for your entire life, and then people say like, okay, now you can be free. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because the first thing people think won't be, how can we make this the best thing ever? They're going to think, okay, I can now do whatever I think is better for me and my family. And I will now have the opportunity to be wealthy or be, you know, like seen as the best person, or so from everyone being equal and the same, and everyone being kind of like stuck into the same mold, and everyone having the same type of jobs and salaries and opportunities, and well, not everyone, but most people would have the same kind of like level all across. Now you get to the point where like people can do things differently, and they can necessarily not only do good things, but also bad things, or look at things in like a personal gain, selfish way.
Gotcha.
As opposed to what's better for everyone, or at least what's better for everyone that I care about. And it kind of shifted the way that people also look at work. So the way that like people look at wealth, all of these things, like it's changed completely what they do and how they do it. And that like permeates through everything from schools to workplaces to companies, relationships, people, neighbors, everything. It kind of like, it changes the way that people are. And I can see it every time I go home. People are never happy. They're never satisfied. It's never enough. There's always conversations about how much do you make? What car do you drive? All of these things. And I'm like, what does that matter if you're not happy? Like, at the end of the day, yes, you need a certain level of, you know, like income to survive and thrive. But past that threshold, there's like studies that actually more money doesn't make a difference. And I don't think they've realized that yet. I think there are some people who have. The majority of people that are there are not subscribed to that philosophy that there is more to life than money.
What's made you subscribe? What's made you think differently then? If the society was so permeated with this ideology of just getting by.
I think it is my parents. So I think they've realized that they are trapped in this like world, and they don't necessarily subscribe to that philosophy.
Okay.
I think my family is a little bit different because we live in the countryside, and like we've had to, you know, do manual work and stuff. To some extent, I do agree with the fact that having to actually work like physically makes a person change. And we have had to help around and like, you know, do our fair share of feeding the chickens or whatever, like as kids. And I think like that also shapes who you become as an adult, and like it shapes your responsibility towards things and work ethic, and like it starts when you're young. Now, the other thing is how other people are treated by your family and your parents. And my parents have also always been like, if I can't help someone, I will. Like my dad, he used to be a mechanic, and people would come, we'd be at lunchtime, and someone would knock at the door and be like, oh, like, you know, my wheel broke and I don't know what to do. Like, could you come and see like what's happening? And literally he'd not finish his soup, get up, go to that person and fix their car. And it wasn't for money. It wasn't for anything. It was just like, it's a neighbor and he needs help and we're going to go and help. And I'm not going to say that my mom was not upset with that. Like she was upset with that. Like she would occasionally kind of like, you know, be like, but like, really? Like, could you not wait for another half an hour? Will the car go anywhere? And he'd be like, well, he needs some help and I'll come back and like, you know, like just put the soup away. I'll have it when I come back and stuff. And that's how I learned like how to be. So like if someone comes to me and asks for help, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to see what I can do to help. And again, if I can't help personally, I'm going to see who I know that could help them.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask as well, because from listening to your story, just thinking about my background as well, my journey, like our environments play a huge role. Sometimes, well, many times on the unconscious level or subconscious level. Yeah. And sometimes, of course, you take some things consciously. And I was quite keen to hear your thoughts. You've been in Barcelona. You've been in the UK. You've been in Romania. You speak Brussels. You speak like 4 or 5 languages.
Yes.
Now,
I also was in Zambia for a little bit and in India for a little bit.
Exactly.
So, given your experiences in those places, how have these locations themselves shaped you? So, like, you've spoken a bit about how Romania itself and how you've, learned about who you could be and who you shouldn't be from Romania. How did Barcelona, for example, shape you distinctively as opposed to all the other areas?
I think Barcelona actually shaped me the most.
Really?
I think it was because that was the first major decision that I took by myself. Before, like, I would talk to my parents and I would tell them, like, Zambia and India and stuff were before Barcelona. And I would talk to them and I'd be like, I have this opportunity, is only for like this period of time, but like I'm going and doing this. And I'd kind of like discuss it and debate it before I said yes or no or did the thing. But with Barcelona, I don't know, like I never thought I'm going to get it. So I kind of was like, well, I'm going to try it out and I'm going to see what happens. But I never really went to my parents and I asked them like, hey, what do you think? Especially since it was like right after my graduation that I would have had to move to Spain. I didn't actually attend my graduation because I was in Spain to like actually go and work. And it is one of the things that I do regret because I wish my parents could have come, both of them, at the time. But I wasn't in the country. So I decided I'm just going to go home for a weekend from Spain and kind of like see them instead of going to the graduation. But, like you live and you learn and we get older and we appreciate things differently. But Barcelona was like the first time I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to then tell them. And actually, my grandma actually asked me, she was like, why did you not talk to us and ask for our opinion and stuff? And I'm like, well, have you ever moved to a new country for a new job? Before? Because all of them have spent most of their lives, actually all of their lives there, except for my mom that moved to Scotland. But none of them had to go through this at any point. And by this point, I've done this like a few times. So it's like, well, I think I have enough knowledge and like awareness to be able to make this decision as an adult without needing anyone else's permission to do this. And I think like once I did that and I went there, one of my interviewers, I met him obviously like after I started working there, and he actually told me, because I thought there were more people interviewing for that role and there were more roles. And he told me that actually I was the only one that got the job. And he said the final round was 14 other people. And you were the only one that got it. And like that changed my world. Because in no universe was I under the impression that like after like maybe hundreds of applications, they went down to 14 people for the final interview round. And out of that, I would be the only one that gets a job. I'm like, what? So for me, it was like, it completely changed my world. Because I was like, okay, I can do this. Like I'm good at this. And part of that, like, I think he also laughed because he said, when we saw your CV, we went and showed it to everyone in the office. Because basically what I did, I created my CV with like a Candy Crush theme. And at the bottom, I actually said like, like copyright belongs to blah, blah, blah. Like a lot of stuff that most people at like, like 20 years old wouldn't even think about. But because I had to do so much stuff with like the legal side of like getting a work permit and everything, I was like, do you know what? And like the publishing degree and copyright law and all of the stuff, I was like, I'm just going to put that down because like I'm using their stuff, which I shouldn't be using. But this is for like applying to their job. So I'm just going to put it like as a disclaimer at the bottom. And everything was like, like there was like the Candy Crush journey for stuff, like for my experience and like little Candy Crush gems for like my skills and stuff. And honestly, I think that is like, that was a lot like contributing to them actually offering me the job and asking me to come and like interview. And I think like it was unexpected, but I think that's again, that unicorn capacity is like, yes, I have skills and yes, I've done stuff, but I'm also creative and like, I like designing stuff and like, I like making people delight in things. And I think like their values as a company and like all of the things that they had about them were like things that resonated with me. And through the interviews and the CV and everything, like they kind of felt like, do you know what? Yes, you do have these values and it's a good fit with the company. But it still was like, I didn't realize how like infinite the chances were for other people to get the job, and like how I was the person who got it in the end. And it was really like confidence boosting, and also like making me realize that maybe I don't always make the best decisions, but once in a while I kind of nail it.
Yep.
And like you won't be able to learn and you won't be able to make better decisions if you don't make decisions, and if you don't decide where you want to go and what you want to do. And unfortunately, sometimes you kind of make the decisions and things go well for a while, and then you realize that life is hard and it sucks, and sometimes you can't really reverse those decisions. And we talked before about like my dad and the fact that he passed away. And I think I was 25 when that happened. So he was probably 6 years-ish after I left home. And I didn't really think that it would happen so soon. And I knew I couldn't change it. By that time, I was already working at JP Morgan. I enjoyed my job. I didn't want to give up my job. I didn't want to move back home. I knew that I didn't want to work back home. So it's like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And this was before remote working, hybrid working, all the fun stuff. And I was lucky because I had like a very supportive manager, and they understood my situation. My dad, we didn't know he was sick until we did. And then it was about 1.5 years between that and him passing away. And you always think that, you know, like this happens to other people, it doesn't happen to you. Like, you know, you don't think about death until you have to.
Yeah.
And most people choose not to. I guess like in our culture, we do think about death and we talk about it, and like it's a permanent thing in life, and we all know that. And again, like coming back to like those traditions and heritage, and like people, you know, like keeping these traditions alive, like we still do that, and it is very much a part of life. Like most people, I don't know, 20 years ago, like they would pick their casket out and all of the stuff they need to have, and they'd have it in the attic for when it needs to happen. Because like usually in Romania, like you need to get buried after 3 days when you pass away. So there's not much time to do anything. And most people want to choose. It's like, well, I want to know what I'm wearing when you're going to be, you know, putting me in the ground forever. And like, I want to choose my casket with the wood and the designs and the patterns that I want. And like, I want to pick all the stuff and have it all ready. And it also makes it easier for the family, because like then they don't have to make all of these decisions while they're trying to kind of process what's just happened and their loss and their grief. And yeah, like it is very much permanent. But I think a lot of people, when they move away from home, especially if you move to another country or like the other side of the continent, you never really think about it. Like in the sense of this could happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you always think you have more time. You never think that, you know, like you think, oh, well, you know, my parents are in their 50s, like they're young. They're going to be here forever. And then you realize they're not, and they won't. And you also start to kind of understand your own mortality. Yeah. And that you might not be around for that long. Like, you never know what's going to happen. And I think that's also like, it was like a seismic shift, because I realized that some decisions that I made in life can't be reversed. And the fact that I chose to be away from them and live my life away from them. I still got to see them a couple of times a year, but it wasn't the same thing. And like, you do have to think what you're trading, but I think it's only at that moment when you kind of start to realize like, okay, so I can't get that time back. I can't get them back. The only thing I can do is moving forward. How do I do this better? And how do I do it so I don't regret stuff? So, for example, when my mom said, like, you know, I want to come and stay with you in Scotland, I was like, sure, you have a room, go and
Right. And that
move
was
in.
because of that seismic shift
Yes.
perspective.
Because if my family wants to be with me, and if my friends wants to be with me, and if we want to spend time together, that is the most important thing. Because the only thing you cannot get back is time. And the only certainty in life is death. And we can't predict how soon that's going to come and how much time we have left.
Yeah. Do you think the awareness, the embedding of the awareness of death and mortality in Romanian culture has an impact on how people live, in sense of living lives with more purpose, or is that just more?
Well,
in terms
I wish
of
that was the case. I wish that was the case. I think it's more the older generations that do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they start to appreciate it more, because when you start to lose people, you understand what's important to you. So the older you get, the more loss you experience, the more clear it becomes.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I told you about this book that I read a few days ago called When Breath Becomes Air. And I wouldn't give spoilers, but basically it's about
I've downloaded it already, so I have 2 books to finish, and then that's my next book.
yeah, it's about a neurosurgeon who thought he had time, right? And then all of a sudden he had spoken to several patients, counseled families through death and all of that stuff. And then there it was one day, a scan revealed he had cancer. And he had only a couple of months, I think a few years to live. And so he spent the last couple of months documenting his thoughts on life as he approached death. And basically, what he said, that book is really making me rethink a lot of choices, just as you had that seismic shift, is death is constant in life.
Yeah.
And you honestly, we all have no idea how much. And keeping it out of our minds and thinking, well, it could not happen to me, that's to someone else. It's not true. You just have no idea. Yeah. And hopefully it reorients people to realizing we've got one life, we've got only so much time, so might as well fill those times with things that, you know, align with our purpose, make you happy, etc., etc. Yeah. I'm keen to expand a bit around that seismic shift aspect for you. How did that change? How did that make you change your own approach to life, Alex?
I realized that, yes, I had to work, you know, like nonstop while I was younger.
Yeah.
But I also realized that that is a means to an end. Like, work and money and having a job is great. And again, like we were talking about that threshold, like, you know, where you have your needs satisfied. And you're able maybe to help and give back, that's good, and it's good enough. And it doesn't have to be a continuous kind of like struggle and race. And I started to think about, you know, like, what do I really want to do? And again, you know, when it's time to move on and do other things. Because I think sometimes we get stuck. And sometimes we get stuck in this cycle where you're thinking, you know, that you're going to let people down, or like you're letting yourself down, and you don't really want to go and make a change or move away or do something else. And I think, like, after that happened, I realized that life is short. You don't know how short. There needs to be time for work, yes, but also for all of the other meaningful things in your life. Like your friends, your community, your impact, your life outside of work, your health. Like, all of these things should have as much, if not more, importance in your life than just your work. Yes, work can be meaningful and it can be fulfilling, but it's not your purpose. Like, unless you're, I don't know, like a doctor or a minister, or, I don't know, somewhere where you are providing yourself and others with meaning through your work, most of the stuff we do today, it's not like our meaning. It's a means to an end. And I think you need to spend time to realize what that meaning is, however big or small. But it takes time. And again, that's time from the time that you have left. And then you have all of the people and all of the non-people potentially, like your pets, your cat, your dog that you want to spend time with. Like, instead of spending 15 more minutes on your email, why don't you spend 15 more minutes taking your dog for a walk? Because they will appreciate it and they will return that appreciation to you in love. And what is better than that? Scrolling through your email for 15 minutes when you could have probably scrolled through it tomorrow anyway. Or being right, okay, I finished work. Instead of spending that extra 15 minutes on your email or trying to respond to another email or getting upset over something or being stressed about something, why don't you just shut it down, walk downstairs or walk outside, get the dog, go have a walk for 15 minutes. And I think that's, I still work through it. I still have moments when I wish I would make better choices, but I think even having the awareness that we can make better choices and more meaningful choices is what we should work for. Yeah. And again, there is no life without death. Death shouldn't be scary or I don't know, make you be paralyzed with the fear of death so you don't do anything because you just think, well, I'm going to die anyway. That's not a healthy way of looking at death. But looking at death as a fact and as an inevitable truth in life and using that to make the most out of every day and every interaction and try to to an extent build your life so you have more moments of joy and satisfaction and meaningfulness than of sadness and stress and despair.
Yeah, because it's interesting you mentioned that because certain things, I think it was even Steve Jobs that said this, certain things fall away in the face of death, right?
Yes.
So
most things.
Most things, the arguments you had with your colleague or the argument you had with your partner or the fact that the boss had to say good morning.
You made your porridge and it exploded in the
microwave
this morning.
It's like we're talking on the fact that you got, I don't know, less bonus shit than you did and it's making you live a sad life. Yeah. And I think like you say, a healthy appreciation of the fact that one day we're going to die actually help us live more meaningfully. That's a profound takeaway. And if you could talk to 18-year-old Alex as you look back now, so imagine 18-year-old here and she's you've seen the future.
I have seen the future.
What would you tell her?
I think that it's going to work out in the end.
Okay.
And I think at that time, so to paint you a picture, at that time, my dad wasn't talking to me. I applied to universities and got into universities by myself. I was thinking about, can I get a work permit? How will I make this work? Can I get somewhere to live? Do I have enough money to buy a plane ticket? I think I was still to take my English proficiency exam and I was stressing about that. So at that time, the entire world seemed to be just basically caving in on me because I was this is happening and I need to figure it out and I don't know how I'm going to figure it out and how am I going to do all of this? And, I guess, I don't know, 13 years later, 14 years later, I'm do you know what? Yes, it was stressful and yes, it was hard, but it does get better. And sometimes I wish I did spend more time with my family and I did go home more often and I did call them more often. Because those are things that I can never do. It's not I can go back and change anything like that. In terms of knowledge, skills, career, work, all of these things, like I can change this in the future. I can do better. I can be better. Like I can learn other things. I can do other things.
Wow.
But like that time and those things I didn't do because I was working and I was studying and I was doing all of those things, like I can't trade. And again, like that's like the way I look at it and try to not make myself feel too bad about it is that they were sacrifices. Because if I did not sacrifice that time, I wouldn't have been able to go through that journey. And I'm not happy with the sacrifices that I've made all the time, but I'm accepting of them because I understand that if things went differently, I wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't be who I am today. And yes, sometimes it sucks and sometimes it's sad. And, you know, it does play on my mind. And I think about, you know, like, could I have spent more time? Could I have done more? And the truth is probably yes. But my truth is probably no. Because if I did do all of those things, things might have not worked out the way they have today.
Gotcha.
So it's like, it's not about, you know, being happy about decisions and choices. It's about being honest and accepting that it happened the way it happened and we can't go back and change it, but we can do better in the future. And
like
it is what it is. Like, you can't change the past, but you can change the future.
Yeah. No, I tend to like flip that question about talking to your 18-year-old self and imagine if 80-year-old Alex was listening to this conversation.
Assuming I get that far.
Decades from.
To be fair, I have a new friend. She's 83.
Okay.
She's epically amazing. Like, not just epic, not just amazing. She's
Epically
epically amazing.
Love it.
And I, every day since I've met her, I think I would just love to get like to her age and be like her. She is the most upbeat, positive, heartwarming person I have met. Like, she is genuinely amazing. She used to be married to a Navy officer. He's passed away. She lived in Malaysia and Singapore. And she now lives in a tiny town in Scotland. She is from Scotland. And funnily enough, we went on holiday to Thailand 2 months ago. She went to see her friend in Canada at 83 by herself, like just being like, well, I'm getting old. I don't know when I'm going to get to do it again. And, you know, and like we looked at the flight itineraries and like she went to the travel agency and stuff. And she left about the same time we were going to Thailand, and we brought her some gifts and she brought her some chocolate and stuff, and she had the best of times. But like, again, my grandma, she flew the first time in a plane when she came over to see me for my graduation a few years ago, and she was 83 too as well, I think.
Okay.
These are the kind of people that I would like to be when I grow old. Okay. Like people that, like Anne, my new friend, that are just a joy to be around, and they are so funny and they make jokes and they like to be with other people. And sometimes I feel sad because like she sometimes says, you know, like, oh, not many people come to see me and stuff. And like we go and see her almost every other week because we're like, well, do you know what? She's such a good person. It's a shame that there are not more people that get to like feel her presence, like just be with her. Like it doesn't even matter. Like we could be doing nothing, like literally just be sitting in the door chatting for 20 minutes and it just like uplifts your entire day. And then she tells you about like when she was a child and stuff like that, and it's like super interesting and super engaging, and she's just awesome. So like I think if Alex gets to 80 years old, I think alongside what my grandma or Anne would say, it would probably be to just not take stuff seriously or that seriously and have fun and enjoy life. Because again, you don't know what's going to happen when. And like you were saying, like there's some things that just don't matter. tomorrow, in a month, in a year.
Yeah.
And there's just some things that we react to maybe a bit too forcefully or too emotionally. And sometimes maybe we need to take some time to like to think about what really matters. And if those things really are worth our energy and our time. Because we all get stressed. We all get upset. We all get, you know, like in that cycle of something bad happened. Oh, like this has thrown off everything I planned to do. And it's like, yeah, but realistically, do you want to spend the next 6 hours that you're going to be with your family sulking and upset and like thinking about stuff? Or should we maybe redirect that energy and think, I want to be here present with my family and with these people, and allowing them to bring maybe their positive energy, because maybe they didn't have something bad happen to them today, and change your kind of like feelings, so you're not spending that time in that negative space and maybe wasting some of the precious little time that we have on those things. And again, like it's always a work in progress. It's always hard. It's always like difficult. And it's like even more difficult when, you know, things are against you. Like maybe you've lost your job, maybe you lost a family member, maybe, you know, like you're tired because you have a newborn. All of these things, like they compound and make it harder and harder and harder to be able to see like on the other side. But the reality is we're still going to die. Like, and the reality is, you know, the world is as it is, and we can try to do our best, but at the same time, we need to do our best for ourselves. And I think like just appreciate what we have, as little or as much as it is. And if you have a lot to appreciate, maybe think about sharing with others.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, because there's several people who I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and there's this concept like first world problems, right? And
there are many.
many first world problems. Like, for example, if you think, oh my goodness, okay, can I get better rates on my mortgage right now? Whereas there are so many people who have been just looking for some money for some rent, right? And
or to get something to eat.
Or even get something to eat. And every one of us can, in some way, contribute to someone else experiencing a bit of joy and happiness. And sometimes it doesn't even cost that much, right? So I think that's a huge takeaway as we, you know, as we wrap up and live through life as well, is this idea of, yes, life is finite. Life is, we're all going to die. Hopefully that helps us drop off things as we go on that don't really matter, but also contribute to other people's lives in positive ways. I thought it would be great to end with rapid fire questions. There's one more question I have to ask you, but we'll do the rapid fire questions first. But I thought I would modify it a bit.
Okay.
And I'll call it the rapid fire questions and Alex's hot takes.
Okay.
All right. So I'll give you like 2 or 3 scenarios and give you your hot takes. Then on to rapid fire questions.
Okay.
How does that sound?
Okay.
Right. So hot take 1. What are your thoughts on how people can be more aware of how their environment is shaping them, and sort of like either embrace the positives and or reject the negatives? So for example, in your case, right, like you have some small awareness from your parents about, but many people may not even know they're being influenced in any way by their environment. It's just take it for granted. How do you think folks can approach that?
I think sometimes you need some time to stop and think. Like you need time to reflect. And if you've reacted to something, so especially if, again, digitalized, like powerful emotional reactions. So if you're upset, if you're super excited, if you're disappointed, if you're like angry, like when you experience these like super intense emotions, like take a step back and maybe like reflect for half a minute of like, why is that? Who is actually, you know, like celebrating or being upset? And like, why are you really thinking that way? So like, is it because when you were a kid, your parents used to kind of like react that way to a similar sort of situation? Is it because of your partner? Like, is this how they react? For example, like maybe someone dismisses their achievements. So maybe something really great happened and you go and you tell your partner and you're like, oh my God, like this thing happened. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And then you get that and you're kind of like, the next time something really great happens, you're kind of like, oh, okay, cool. So is it you that's really thinking that and reacting that way? Or is it the environment and the relationships and kind of like the place that you're in right now or you've been in before that has actually changed the way that you would react? And again, if you don't think it's you, and if you think that, actually, I used to really, really feel proud of my stuff when I achieved great things, make it a point to try to get back to that and see like how you can change it. Maybe you don't tell that person, or you tell that person, but you also tell a couple of other people that might have a different reaction, and they can help you get back into kind of like that true self kind of like way of reacting to things. Okay. And again, it's hard. It's hard to know how much of you is you.
Yeah, that's deep. That's actually deep.
It is deep.
I feel like in London life, Alex, you feel like a psychologist or something.
I wish. Maybe another degree at some point.
I'm just...
Yeah, like how much of you is you and how much of you is everyone else around you and all of your life experiences. Because again, the flip side of that is, in terms of what we're talking with like, death and life and stuff, and leaving things after we go, maybe, you will, and giving back or paying it forward or like supporting other people, parts of you will stay with other people. Like other people are also you, because if you've ever helped people or supported them or, done something that has changed their life, that will stay with them forever.
Yeah, sure.
So even after you're gone, there will still be a small part of you that is in other people. And equally, other people will stay with you. So how much of you is you and how much of you is other people? And if the way that you react to stuff is maybe not the way you want to, maybe that's because of the people around you.
Gotcha.
Or maybe it's because of the experiences that have shaped you into becoming who you are today. Yeah. And you need to figure out, if you want to change it, how do you start to kind of like change that mix to see like how you can get back to the you that you want yourself to be. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hot take 2. Yes. Hot take 2. You speak 5 languages, 4 or 5 languages.
Yes.
What are languages again? So
Romanian, English, French, Spanish, and I am learning Korean and Gaelic.
So 6.
Not really, because Gaelic is really hard, so I don't count that. Korean, I know a little bit, where I can actually watch some of the Korean dramas without subtitles, like some of the conversation I can get. So I'm getting there with Korean, but Gaelic, super hard.
Okay. So hot take 2. What's the Alex's method to learning languages? Like, how would you
very
recommend
expensive method?
someone looking to learn a language?
A very expensive method is to actually go and live in that country, which has worked the best for me. So I actually lived in Belgium and I spoke French there, and that's where I really, really like practice my French. And similarly, when I was in Spain for like the 3 months, I actually went to like proficient conversational level of Spanish in 3 months because I was there.
I see.
And like I used to speak Spanish in the morning and then switch to English in the afternoon when I got tired. But like in 3 months, I basically went from not really speaking Spanish at all anymore to like conversational, like properly. And even now, I went to Buenos Aires a couple of months ago, and I thought my Spanish was really, really rusty, but I was talking to people there and like colleagues and stuff, and they were like, oh my God, like your Spanish is so good. And I'm like, it's not that good because I haven't practiced. Like my verbs are a bit off because I don't hear it all the time. But it's much easier when you're there, and especially if you have people that don't speak English to like, or your language to like be able to switch between, and it forces you to speak that language. That's like the fastest and easiest way, maybe. But otherwise, I have a 1,300-day streak on Duolingo.
Right, so Duolingo. Yeah. Gotcha. So
if you can't afford to go and live in Spain for 4 years or like 3 months, you could do Duolingo. And I think the other side of it is, right, it's not just about doing the app or like doing like the language, it's about doing it consistently.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that helps.
All right. So question 3.
Yes.
This is as much a hot take as much as it is a reflective case. Then we have to rapid fire questions.
Yes.
What are you most proud of as you look back on your life?
Oh, Lord. I'm proud of a lot of things. But I think the one thing that I can say that I'm the most proud of is making the decision to go. And that first one, when I was a kid and I decided I want to go to uni in the UK and like, you know, build the life. But also like making the decision to go from then on. So when I wanted to change a job, when I wanted to go and try out how it's like living in Spain, or when I thought, you know, 5 jobs are not sustainable, like I need to figure out a way to kind of like go and figure it out. When I changed jobs, like over the years, when I changed directions from software engineering into product, I think, like deciding to go and being able to go and like following through and not just being like, yeah, I'm going to do that someday, maybe. Sometimes maybe I was a bit too impulsive and I was like, I'm going to go and do that. Like, hey, woo, awesome. But I think like leaving and knowing when to go and like actually going and following through, like that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Okay. And one rapid fire question for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
What book has had the most impact on your life in the last 10 years?
Oh, see, this is actually quite funny because the last book that I read, that I finished, the one on slow productivity that I talked about, a lot of the changes that I'm currently planning to make in my life are based on that book. Beyond that, I read a lot of like fiction. And there is one book, I will not name it because like people will change their opinion on me. I mean, I can name it. So there's this book like called Court of Thorns and Roses. It's also Akotar, like shortened. It's like a whole thing. If you go in like book talk, it's like a whole rave. But I think when I first read one of those books, it kind of impressed me because it's a mix of like kind of like action, fantasy, but then like if you start looking really deep underneath the story, there's a lot that you can take from it. And I think the thing that I liked was that the hero of the story, I don't even know if she's a hero or like she's just, you know, the main character that things happen around. She is very human. She's not like perfect. She's not, she doesn't have everything sorted out. She didn't get everything, you know, like perfect just the way she wanted. And I think like that was really nice to see. And I think like sometimes all you really need is to read a book and to feel like you're seen and other people feel the same way. Because if that person writing that book feels that way to write that book, you're not alone.
Gotcha.
And I think like, obviously, like most people, I do like happy endings. I do think it ended after like 5 or 6 books. I've read all of them. I don't know the number. But she did get a happy ending. So I think like that was nice. There was a lot of like darkness weaved between the light. And I think that brings back to kind of like our discussion on kind of like death and life and stuff and you know, yourself and others and how those things impact. And like there's so many like really good characters and really good kind of like lessons to be learned from it. I usually don't really like kind of like self-help, you know, books. But I think a really good fantasy book that can help you process life is so much better.
Okay.
Like, we go to books and movies and series and everything to escape reality, but the reality is we don't want to escape reality. We want to be able to process things somewhere outside of our real world. And I think like that's why I really, really like that series of books, because it's like I don't have to face reality today, but my brain and my subconscious like mind is still going to try to go and process things and learn things through this journey and story. But I don't want to think about it.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
But slow productivity, life-changing.
Okay, and I should definitely get a copy. I should definitely get a copy. Final question, or
Yes.
second to last question. We ask this question to all our guests on the podcast.
Yes.
This is the singular question you're guaranteed to hear in every episode.
Yes.
And feel free to like take some time to like think about this one. So, if given your life's experiences, your stories, your journey, ups and downs, if your life was a book, what would its title be?
Oh.
Take your time.
I'm trying to think. So this is the title that popped into my head. I don't know how applicable it is, but it was like Journey into the Unknown, because I feel like that's how I started. I had a vague idea of where I'm going and what I'm doing.
Okay.
And I kind of have a vague idea of what I'm going and what I'm doing right now. But I think like the journey is the thing.
Yeah, I get
Like,
you.
like I said to you, I thought I wanted to be a million different things. And I've tried to be very many things. And I realized I don't really like all of those things. I just like some.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like the journey is it. Like, because I don't really know what's going to happen in the future. I don't really know where I'm going, where I'm going to end up. But it is a journey, and it's been pretty fun.
Yep.
Maybe we should add like a fun, joyful journey into the unknown, like
I like
alliteration.
that one.
Joyful journey into the unknown, because usually the unknown is not joyful, but like kind of works like that.
A joyful journey to the unknown.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's still ongoing, but if anything, I do really want it to be joyful.
I like that.
Even if I don't know where I'm going and what I'm doing. Most people don't.
I like that. Any final words to our listeners? This is a chance to talk about any single thing.
I'm sorry about the length of this. I don't know how much time has passed, but I feel like...
No, honestly, do not apologize. Like, we once had like a 3.5 hour conversation with someone, so this doesn't come close.
I think don't be afraid to ask for help, but also trust yourself. I think I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for everyone I've met along the way. And like the whole little bit of you, a little bit of them and you. And if I didn't ask for help, and if I didn't give back and build a community and be part of a community, but also you do need to trust yourself.
Yeah.
Because there is no one who's going to make a better decision for yourself than yourself. And, sometimes we don't make the best decisions.
Yep.
But you live and you learn. And I think as long as if you've done something and you're not happy with it, you maybe go and ask someone for help if you need it. That's going to work out in the end. But yeah, loneliness is a terrible, terrible thing. And especially if it's really like weird, because like you might not be alone, but you might be lonely. And I think finding those people that you can stop being lonely with is really important. And yeah, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for all the people I've met along the way.
Yeah. You know what's interesting as we're talking? I was like, we haven't even spoken about like your vice presidency, technology, products. I am remarkable, and all these other things. So we should do work. We should definitely do something else. Like do another episode at some point.
We can do an episode specifically on like top 20 things and Alex did in her life that worked out. I guess.
No. Honestly, Alex, this has been really incredible and amazing having you on. Thanks for taking the time. And
I feel like I'm at therapy. It's like
I feel like that as well, Jenny.
Yeah.
I feel like that as well. Honestly, thank you so much, and I'm so sure many of our listeners as well would be able to like benefit from this. I'm plugging in Alex's LinkedIn. the show notes. So please do feel free. Now I've known Alex. We work together in the same company. Alex is very, very like helpful and happy to like give thoughts and stuff. So please feel free to like engage with her on LinkedIn and let her know as well like your feedback on this comment on this episode. But Alex,
if I can help with anything, you can hit me up. If I can't, I'll point you in the right direction.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.